Hello everybody, welcome to my channel. My name's Louisa. Can you believe that Christmas is over and now here it is, it's almost Valentine's Day? I cannot believe that it's already February, but I'm very excited because today I'm going to show you how to make this beautiful Valentine's necklace. As you can see, it's a two-tier necklace and it has some heart pendants. So I'm real excited to show you how to do this. Mine is about 15 inches, but you can make it any size you want depending on how many beads you want to use. And today we're going to use 6mm beads, and I'm going to use these beautiful purple beads. So let me go ahead and turn the camera around and I'll show you how to make this necklace. So before we go over the materials, I wanted to show you the necklace on a bead mat so you can see how it was built. It's actually a very simple design. As you can see, it's a two-tier necklace, but it's connected in certain areas with a Montee bead, a Rose Montee. So really the only place where you need to attach anything is right here up at the clasp. Okay, you'll need two crimps up there. But basically, it's very simple, as you can see. I believe you need 8 Montees, and let me just show you what a Montee looks like in case you have never seen one. There's one. Let me show you the back. If you'll notice, in the back there are actually two holes that are forming like a crisscross. Okay, so it's 4 holes actually, but you can put in 2 threads, one going in one direction and one going in the other direction. So basically that's how I built this necklace. On the front of the Rose Montee are some prongs, and this is a Swarovski, so you can get these in quite a few places. I think Fire Mountain Gem has them. I kind of don't want to get caught up with where to find them, because that kind of gets me into trouble, because I send people to certain places and then suddenly they sell out. And I don't want that to happen. So I want you to go out and look for them. I will tell you the size of Rose Montee that you'll need, but and the size of all the other beads that you'll be needing. But I would like for you to go out and see if you can find them on your own. I will try to find, I think Fire Mountain Gem has these beautiful 6mm. They're actually smooth round beads, and you can use anything really. You can use druck beads, check druck beads. You can use gemstones if you want to. You can use clear glass. This happens to be like a frosted finish on these beads, and I got them from Art Beads quite a while ago, and the color was Cosmic Twinkle in a crystal color. But if you Google that up, you're going to see some different colors. So I'm not sure who's correct and who's incorrect, but it's basically like a white frosted finish with a slight iridescence on it. But today we're going to be using something a little bit different. We're going to be using these beautiful luster smooth round drucks. I thought it was mermaid beads, but actually it's not, because the mermaid beads that you see out there on the market have like a sheen where it looks like they're glowing, and these don't. These just have a beautiful iris luster on them. I don't know if you can see that. And so this is like a purple luster color, and they're 6mm. So it doesn't matter what you use. I mean, I almost use these beautiful fluorite beads. These are gemstones. As long as they're 6mm and as long as they're smooth, that's really all you want, okay? But you will be needing some of those, and I use 102 in this design, okay? So you're going to need 8 Montees, 102 6mm smooth round beads, and you're also going to be needing some rhinestone crystal rondelle spacers, and I used 22 in this design, and I actually used the gunmetal colored ones because I wanted them to stand out a little bit. But obviously, you can use whatever you want. You can use silver, antique silver. I like the gunmetal for 2 reasons. 1, because it stands out, and 2, because I had a whole bunch that I needed to use up. The crystals are actually clear. You can get them sometimes with crystals that are Aurora Borealis, but these are actually clear crystals in the spacer beads. So anyway, yes, you're going to need 22 of the rondelle spacer beads. And then, of course, you're going to need these focals. Now, I got this focal at Michael's, and they were selling them not too long ago in a strand of 5, and it's by Bead Landing. And these are pretty large. Let me see how big they are. Let me go ahead and measure it for you. So they're about 24 by 28 millimeters. So they're pretty big, and they're pretty thick as well, but not too bad. They're about 10 millimeters, maybe 12 millimeters thick. But as you can see, they have the hole running vertically, straight up and down. Okay, so that's what I used here. But you can use any shape. It doesn't have to be a heart, and it can be a gemstone even, as long as it's some kind of a flat pendant. For this piece, now this one's a little bit harder to find. This is a Swarovski heart, faceted heart, and it's 14 millimeters wide, I believe it is, 14 by 14. And these are very, very difficult to find. So what I was going to use today, instead of that, I was going to use this beautiful faceted coin bead that I got from Bag & Bead Box. I think it was around September of last year. I know they don't sell them anymore, but if you can find some kind of a coin bead that's between 10 and 14 millimeters in diameter, that would be sufficient. And you don't, I mean, there are no rules. Obviously, you know, here's a larger coin bead that I thought about using. This one would actually look pretty good with these beads here. We could try that. I could show you how that looks. Then I also have this faceted crystal that I got at one of the gem shows, which has purples and blues. It has like an iris color. So I was going to use that as well. I was even going to use a smaller heart. And what I can do, I can show you what each one looks like before we actually assemble it. But I want you to experiment. I want you to, you know, take a look and see what works for you. Put it down on a bead tray. Put down your beads. See what looks good. And then just experiment and have fun with it and see, you know, how you want to, what size bead you want to use. All right, so let me go ahead and clear my tray and we'll get started. Of course, I always forget the most important thing, and that is the clasp. You need a lobster clasp. You will need a jump ring. You'll also need a couple of crimps, 2x2, I believe I used. Yeah, 2x2 millimeters. I like to use sterling silver because they're pretty durable and they don't crack when you try to crimp them. But just make sure if you're using sterling silver or Bridal is a good brand, make sure that they're not real thin, okay? You want them real thick because I use 49 strand stringing wire, and it's the 0.46 millimeter thickness. So that's a pretty substantial beading wire. So you want to be able to fit the beading wire through the crimp, okay? And we're going to actually fit both of these through the crimp twice. So actually think about it in terms of 4 threads or four wires per crimp. And then you'll need some bead covers as well, okay? Some crimp covers, I should say. And then I also used some 11O seed beads and some 8O seed beads as well. Okay, so those are the materials. So now that we got that out of the way, now we can get started. I always end up forgetting something. You will need this head pin because we have to assemble the focal piece. So this head pin is about 2 inches. You know, depending on what focal piece you use, you need to take that into account because you need something that's long enough. We're going to do a wrap loop, so you need something that's long enough to accommodate your pendant. All right, so this head pin is 2 inches. So the first thing you're going to do is thread it through, okay? And then after you thread it through, go ahead and put on one of these beautiful 6 millimeter round beads, just like that, okay? And then get your pliers, your round nose pliers. I actually have been using these a lot lately. These are tiny round nose pliers, and they have cutters built in as well. And they also, I don't know if you can see this, there's a little groove in there for jump rings. I believe I got these on Amazon, very, very, very cheap. But I've been using these because I like the size of this nose. It's a tiny nose, so I can make much smaller loops with it. All right, so let me go ahead and put this back on because it fell out. All right, get your round nose pliers, grab it at the top of the bead, bend your head pin about 90 degrees, rotate so you can grab the top end of that kink, and then make sure you select the correct position for your nose, the plier nose, because if you want a smaller loop, obviously you're going to be closer to the front of the nose. If you want a bigger loop, obviously you're going to be closer to the back. And then once you select where you want to be, go ahead and bend the jump ring, or I'm sorry, the head pin, bend it all the way around and around to the back, just like this. Okay, can you see that? Let me switch hands. So this is what you have, okay? And then get some flat nose pliers or whatever you can grab that head pin with, and then go ahead and loop that around a couple of times. I personally don't like too many wraps because I don't want to see wire. I want to see the beads. So I think 2 wraps is sufficient. You don't need more than that. Okay, and then once you have your wraps, you want to snip off the excess very carefully. Okay, and then once you snip off the excess, make sure that you tuck that little burr in so it's not sticking out. Okay, that's very, very important. So that's the first step. Okay, all right, so now you're going to need 2 pieces of wire, or threading wire I should say. Like I said earlier, it's 49 strand, which means it's going to have a lot of movement. The more strands you have in the beading wire, the more movement, the more flexible the wire is. Okay, so the first thing you're going to thread on, we're going to do one side. Okay, so 2 pieces of 20 to 22 inches of beading wire. I prefer 22 inches so that I don't have to worry about running out of wire. Thread on your component, okay, and then we're going to put on the rondelle spacer beads. Okay, so we're going to put one on this side and one on the other side so that it looks like this. Okay, all right, now here's what I like to do. I like to get one of these clips. I got these on Amazon. I think they come in packs of 10 and they're very strong, so they hold the beads in place. They prevent the beads from sliding off the end of your thread. So I'm going to put it on one side and I'm going to focus threading just one side of the necklace. Okay, so here's how the pattern goes. You need 3 6mm beads. Okay, and then 1 rondelle spacer bead, and then another 3, another rondelle, and then another 3. Okay, so now you have this. Now we're not going to worry about the second tier just yet. We're going to do that after we finish this one. All right, so now here's where the Montees come in. You're going to grab a Montee and you're going to thread it on. Now, like I showed you earlier, you have 2 channels crisscrossing each other. Don't worry about which channel or how to thread it at this point. Just put it in to whatever channel you can and bring it down. And this is what you should have, okay? All right, so now we're going to continue with the pattern. And you're going to need 3 6mm beads again. One spacer bead, and another 3 6mm round beads. Okay, and now another Montee. Now the Montee has a front side and a back side. Don't worry about which side at this point, because we're not concerned about it just yet. We will be later on when we assemble the whole thing. Okay, moving right along. So now we're going to repeat the same pattern 2 more times. So this pattern here, 3 6mm, a spacer, and 3 6mm, and a Rose Montee. Do this pattern 2 more times, and I'll meet you back. All right, so I'm back. As you can see, I've threaded one side of the lower tier, and now we're going to thread the other side exactly the same way. So the first segment right here has 3 sets of 3 6mm with rondelles in between, but then these other segments, these other 3 segments, only have 2 sets of 3 6mm with a rondelle in between. Okay, so just keep it the same. This is where we're going to do that crisscrossing pattern. All right, so you'll need just 2 sets of 3. So go ahead and repeat the exact same pattern on this side, and I'll meet you back. All right, so I've threaded on the lower tier, and now we're going to work on the upper tier. So get your second piece of beading wire, and we're going to start by threading on one spacer bead. Okay, and then we're going to do the same pattern, the 6 6mm with the rondelle in between. We're going to do a few of those on one side, and then we're going to decide which focal piece to use, because if you remember, initially I wasn't sure which one I was going to use. I think I'm going to probably use the faceted coin bead that I got from Bargain Bead Box, but I haven't quite decided yet. So I want to thread on a few of these 6mm beads, and then thread on one of the focals to see what it looks like, and then we can decide which one we want to use ultimately. Okay, so I've threaded on one set, and what's going to happen now is this is actually going to go through this Montee here. All right, but before we do anything, we have to decide which bead we're going to settle for. And I don't know whether I should settle for this crystal bead from Bargain Bead Box. It's gonna look something like this, or this beautiful 6-sided coin bead Chinese crystal that I got from one of the gem shows that came to my area. This one's pretty nice as well. I want to show you as well what a smaller heart will look like, because I know you can get these on Fire Mountain Gem, the 10mm size, and actually it doesn't look too bad at all. It looks pretty nice. This one, I believe it doesn't matter which side you use. I know with the one on the other necklace, it had some iridescence on one side but not on the other side. This one might have some too. It's hard to tell. Let me flip it around so we can take a look. Yeah, it has more sheen on one side. So actually this one looks pretty as well. I like the way this one looks. It goes really nicely, and it has the heart, so it matches this focal. So even though it's a smaller heart than the other one, I still like it. I think it's very pretty. So we're going to use this one. And I know you can get this one at Fire Mountain Gem in an Aurora Borealis finish. So that would look absolutely gorgeous with either a purple luster or a blue luster round bead. Okay, and actually any color bead. You can use any color when you're using a crystal AB. All right, so now I'm going to put my clip on, and I'm just going to focus on this one side. So for this side, you're going to need actually 3 more sets just like this, but before I let you go on your own, I want to show you what we're going to do here. So there's my Rose Montee on this lower tier. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to take my thread and thread it through the other channel on the back of that Montee, just like this, okay? Now here's where you do have to pay attention to the Montee to make sure that it's facing the right direction, okay? Because you don't want to do this one and have it facing the opposite direction. So once it's threaded like this, they pretty much stay like that. You don't have to worry about them flipping around. That's what I like about this design. All right, so that's all it is, guys. It's very simple. So go ahead and do these 3 sets the same exact way we just did with this one. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and do it and I'll meet you back. A quick side note, when you go to thread the next Montee, this one we came in from this side of the necklace. This Montee, obviously, because you're on this side now, you're going to have to approach it from this side, okay? And again, you want to make sure that Montee is facing the same direction as the other one because you don't want them flipping around. So thread it through just like this, tighten it up, and it should look like that, okay? So again, when you do this one, you'll have to come in this way, and then when you go to do this one, you will be coming in this way. Okay, so go ahead and do the next 2 sets and I'll meet you back. Okay, so I'm back. As you can see, I finished this side and I think it looks adorable. It really does. So now we're going to finish the other side, but you know, I just realized something. Initially I had told you that we needed 102 of these 6mm, but guess what? We need 103 because of this one bead that I added on top of the focal. I always end up forgetting something. I apologize for that. But I thought I would make it up to you by doing this side with you. Okay, so let me go ahead and show you how it's done. So I've threaded on my 6 with a rondelle spacer in between the 3. And now I'm going to go ahead and thread it through the Montee from this side. Okay, because that's where the thread is. The beading wire, I should say. Alright, so now let me put my clip on so I don't lose these beads. And I'll move it this way. Alright, so now we're going to thread on 3 of the 6mm. One of the rondelle spacers, and then another 3 of the 6mm. Okay, so now the beading wire is on this side of the necklace, so we're going to insert the end through that Montee. Okay, pull it through, and now we have 2 more segments to do. So again, put on your 3 6mm and a spacer, and then another 3 of these 6mm. Okay, and we're going to thread it through that Montee from this side. Pull it through. Okay, and now we're almost at the end. So let's go ahead and thread on another 3 of the 6mm. And the rondelle, and then another 3. Okay. Okay, and now flip that Montee around, make sure it's facing the right direction, and thread it through. Now you might meet some resistance because that thread is crossing through and it might run into the other thread, but if you keep trying, eventually you'll get it. Alright, so here we go. That's what we have so far. I love it, and I love these colors. It's so pretty. And the rondelles are a little bit darker than the Montees, but that's okay. I don't mind having them a little bit more subdued with these colors. Like I said, there are no rules. There are absolutely no rules. You can have it all the same color. You can have some more subdued. It all depends on what you want to be noticed and what you want more, more in the background. Okay, so now this is actually the easy part. Now comes the challenging part because we're going to have to fiddle with these wires and put them through the crimps. And it's not easy because, like I said, we're going to be fitting all of these wires through 2 crimps. So let me go ahead and get set up for that, and I'll come right back. Okay, I'm back. I've got my crimp beads here. I've got my crimp bead covers. These are about 2 by 4 millimeters. And then I've got some 11/0 seed beads and some 8/0 seed beads. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do, and this is not as critical. You don't have to worry about the beads being up against each other, because we're going to do that when we do the other side. But for this end, here's what we're going to do. We're going to thread on 2 11/0 seed beads on each beading wire. So there's one, there's another one. Let me just bring it up close so you can see. Okay, and then the same thing on the other wire. All right, so here we go. Now we have this. Okay, 2 11/0 seed beads on each wire. Then we're going to grab an 8/0 seed bead, and we're going to thread both ends through that one 8/0 seed bead, just like this. Okay, it's not going to it's going to want to jump out, but just trust me, it'll work out. You just have to fiddle with it a little bit, but that's what it's going to look like. All right, so now comes the challenging part. Now you're going to get your 2 by 2 crimp bead, and you're going to thread both ends of the wire through that one crimp bead, and you're going to bring it down just like that. Okay, now the challenge here is the following. You have to take these 2 ends and you have to thread them through that same crimp bead. Okay, you're going to thread them through the crimp bead and through the 8/0 that we threaded. Now it's a little bit challenging, but eventually you'll get it. Okay, and like I said, you don't have to worry about the beads being up real snug just yet, because this is actually the easy end. The hard end is the other end, because that's when we really do have to make sure that there's no gaps in between the beads. So now you're going to bring those loops down. Okay, and you're going to bring them down quite a bit, because we don't want these to be really large. Obviously, we can't use a wire guardian. Okay, so you don't want large loops because they're kind of ugly, to be honest. Okay, so you want to bring them down one at a time so that they're both the same exact size, and it's a tiny loop, just like that. Okay, all right, now let me tell you something. I know you've seen a lot of videos about how to crimp beads and how to crimp wire, and how you have to have the wires separated. Well, let me tell you, I've done this necklace several times, and I've pulled on it and tugged on it as hard as I can, and it never came undone on me. So you can either trust me on this or not trust me. It's up to you. I'm telling you that this is going to work. You get your crimpers, and don't worry about the channels, the 2 channels. It'll work out. Use the first divot and give it a good squeeze, okay, because we have a lot of wire in there. So now you should have this. Okay, let me show you the other side. There's your 2 channels, and it actually did separate the wires for me. It happens naturally when you crimp down. So if you're doing this and you're not seeing the 2 channels, you really should redo it again, because that means that you're not separating the wires. But even if they're not completely separated, I wouldn't panic, because like I said, I've done this a million times to where I didn't think it was separating the wires, and it's as strong as can be. So now we're going to use the first divot of the crimping butt pliers. We're going to put it on there and give it another little squeeze. Okay, and here's my secret. I use these other crimpers. These are by Xuron. Okay, and they have different size channels in them. I don't know if you can see that. And that allows me to squeeze that crimp tighter, so it's actually a smaller tube by the time I get done. I squeeze it as much as I can until I feel like it's completely closed. And I even do like a circular motion sometimes around that crimp tube so that it's more cylinder-like instead of flat. Okay. And then once you've got it closed, then you want to go ahead and snip off these wires. And you're going to snip them off real close up against that 8/0 seed bead. As close to the seed bead as you can get it. Okay? Snip them off. And now you should have this. Okay? And here's where you're going to insert your jump ring. So let me go ahead and get the jump ring. And we'll open it up. Okay, once you've got that jump ring open, you want to go ahead and insert it through that double loop, just like this. Okay. Once you've done that, go ahead and close your jump ring really well and make sure that it's completely closed. So you want to check it from the side and you want to check it from the top. Make sure that it's closed. Okay, and then go ahead and slide your beads up and you've got this end done. Okay. All right, so the only thing that's left now is the crimp cover. So get your crimp cover, slip it on. It's easier if you do it from the bottom. Slip it on from the bottom. Get your crimping pliers and use them to close that crimp bead. Okay. And you want to make sure that it's not an egg shape. So I usually go around it very gently to make sure it's closed and that it's round. And there we go. Okay. Let me show you up close so you can see what we've done. Okay, so now we're going to do the exact same thing on the other side, and of course the other side will have the clasp. So this side is actually more challenging because you want to make sure that there are no spaces in between the beads. Okay, that's critical. But at the same time, you don't want it to be too tight because then there's no movement. The necklace will be too stiff if you do it too tight. So it's a balance. You have to find the right balance. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and thread on our 2 11/0 seed beads on each thread. There's one. And there's the other one. Okay. All right, and now to make it easier, if you have wires that are different lengths, go ahead and snip it off. Snip off the longer one so that it's easier to thread onto the 8/0 seed bead. Okay. And now slide it down. And here's where you really have to fiddle with it to make sure that you don't have any visible gaps. Okay. Once you've got your 8/0 on there, get your crimp bead, thread it through both wires, bring it down, and then take the ends and thread them back through that same crimp. Actually, I'm sorry, before you do that, this is important. Get your clasp and thread it through the clasp first. Okay. And actually, it's no big deal if you forget to do that because you can always put a jump ring in there and insert the clasp. Either way, actually, that might even be better in case something ever happens to the clasp. You can replace it. But either way is fine. You can either permanently attach it like I am. Okay, so I've threaded it through the crimp. And now I'm going to make sure those 2 wires go through the 8/0 as well. Just like that. Okay, so now we just have to tighten that loop so that it's a nice size. And this one can actually be a little bit bigger than the other side because you want the clasp to be somewhat loose. You don't want that clasp to be stiff. You want it to be able to move a little bit. Okay, check it before you crimp down. Make sure there are no gaps, and then get your crimpers, and just like you did before, you're going to crimp that down using the first divot. Okay, and then check the two channels and crimp it using the second divot, the one that's further up the nose. And you can continue crimping around that bead using the same crimpers, or if you have this kind of plier, by all means use it, because then you can make that crimp a little bit tighter. Because as you can see, the divots are a little bit smaller. Make sure that it's nice and closed, nice and tight. Okay. And at this point, you can cut off your excess wire. And because it's going to be up against someone's neck, you want to make sure that you cut it real close to that 8/0 seed bead. Okay. Get your cover, slip it on. Just like that. Use your crimp pliers to close that cover up. Make sure that it's nice and round. And that's it, guys. We're done. This is an absolute gorgeous necklace. I love this necklace. I hope you like it as well. I hope you give it a shot. You know, try making one for yourself. Make one in your favorite color. It can be white, it can be a soft pink, it can be aqua, it can be this beautiful purple luster color. Experiment, try different focals. I love this heart because it's not symmetrical, and that's what I like about it. Anyway, like I do always, guys, I'm going to go ahead and put this necklace on and show you what it looks like, so I'll be right back. Well, it's almost Valentine's, and I'm totally in love with this necklace. I thought it turned out really nice. I'm very pleased with how it looks. It's a little bit shorter than the other one, and I think it's because the beads were a little bit smaller, so you need to take that into account. Even if it's just a little bit smaller than 6 millimeters, it's going to make a big difference. So what I recommend that you do before you put your clasp on is you want to measure the length of the necklace, and if you need to add another loop, then please do so. Make sure that you have the correct length for yourself. Well, I had a lot of fun today. I really enjoyed making this necklace with you. I hope you enjoyed this video. I wish you all a happy Valentine's Day, and I'm looking forward to seeing you again. Thanks so much for watching. Bye.